For weeks, the world had been whispering. Every headline, every social media post, every late-night talk show carried the same name, CanYaman. The actor, known for his intensity both on and off screen, had vanished from the public eye. No statements, no interviews, no comments. Just silence. A silence that made people talk even louder. It all began after the pictures surfaced, the ones that showed him and Sarah Bluma together, smiling, walking, sharing quiet moments that looked far too intimate to be professional. Overnight, speculation turned into accusation. They're in love. She's the reason he changed. Sarah is his new obsession. The media spun its usual web of fantasy, and the fans, confused, curious, hungry for answers, started demanding the truth. But Can said nothing. Not one word. Until now. In Rome, behind the closed doors of his apartment, he sat in the dim light of evening, staring at the phone on the table. Dozens of missed calls from his manager, journalists, friends. He ignored them all. The air was heavy with expectation. He had always been private, fiercely protective of his emotions, but this time, the world had gone too far. They had turned a story into a storm, and it was time for him to speak. The message that finally broke his silence came from someone unexpected, Sarah herself. Sarah *, they're destroying you. Say something, before it's too late. Can *, and what should I say? That they're right? Sarah *, no. Say the truth. He stared at the message for a long time. The truth. The truth wasn't simple, not something that could fit into a headline. It wasn't love, not the kind people romanticized, not the fairy tale the tabloids were selling. But it was something real. Something that had shaken both of them to the core. That night, Can called his manager. Set up the interview, he said calmly. No scripts, no filters. I'll say everything myself. When word got out that CanYaman would finally break his silence, the entertainment world erupted. Cameras, microphones, flashing lights, everyone wanted to hear what he would say. Fans flooded social media with predictions. Some believed he'd confirmed a relationship. Others thought he'd deny it completely. But no one expected what was about to come. The day of the interview arrived. Can walked into the studio wearing black, his expression unreadable. The host, nervous but excited, welcomed him. Can, thank you for being here. Everyone's been waiting to hear your side. Are you ready to tell us what really happened with Sarah Bluma? He took a deep breath. I'm ready to tell the truth, he said simply. The room went silent. The camera zoomed in. Every heartbeat felt louder than the last. She's important to me, he began. But not in the way everyone thinks. The host leaned forward. What do you mean? Can's eyes softened, his voice steady but full of emotion. People keep asking if it was love. But what we had, it wasn't about that. It was about two people who saw each other at a time when the world around them was falling apart. It wasn't about romance. It was about understanding. He paused, looking down for a moment. It was never about love, not the kind the world wants to believe. It was something else entirely. The host hesitated. Then what was it, Can? He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides pain. It was connection. It was truth. But sometimes the truth is too complicated for people to understand. That one line was enough to send shockwaves through the media. Within minutes, it was never about love became the most quoted phrase on every platform. Fans flooded comment sections with confusion. Some called it denial. Others said it was poetry. But everyone agreed on one thing, CanYaman had finally spoken. Yet behind those calm words, there was something else, something he didn't say on camera. Because even if the world believed him, the story wasn't over. Not for him. Not for Sarah. The interview ended, but the world didn't calm down, it exploded. Within hours, clips of Can's statement spread across every corner of the internet. It was never about love. Those 5 words became a global sensation. Fans replayed them endlessly, dissecting every pause, every glance, every breath he took before saying them. Some said he looked heartbroken. Others said he looked relieved. But no one could agree on what he truly meant. News anchors, bloggers, and influencers filled entire programs trying to interpret his words. If it wasn't about love, then what was it? One headline asked. CanYaman denies love, but not Sarah, another claimed. Every opinion clashed with another, and every version of the story became more dramatic than the last. But while the world screamed for answers, Sarah stayed silent. She had watched the interview alone, her hands trembling slightly as she listened to his voice echo through the room. The tone, the honesty, it wasn't rehearsed. He had spoken from the heart. Yet, when he said it wasn't about love, something inside her broke quietly. She knew what he meant, but hearing it out loud, for everyone to judge, was like reliving the pain they had both tried so hard to bury. She turned off the TV and sat there in the dark for a long time. The city outside was still buzzing, car horns, voices, the rhythm of normal life. But for her, time had stopped. In her heart, she whispered words he would never hear. Maybe it wasn't love for you, but it was everything for me. Meanwhile, in another part of Rome, Ken sat alone in his apartment, staring at the city lights. The interview had gone exactly as planned. He had told the truth, at least the version of it that the world could handle. But inside, there was another truth, one he couldn't say publicly. Because if he did, it would destroy her. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and leaned back, the silence pressing down on him. His phone buzzed, hundreds of messages, notifications, calls. He ignored them all, except one. Sarah *, you handled it well. Thank you. He stared at the message for a long time before replying. Ken *, I said what needed to be said. Sarah *, you said it wasn't love. He hesitated. Ken *, because it wasn't something the world would understand. Sarah *, but we did. Those 3 words, but we did, hit him harder than anything the press could write. He typed, erased, typed again. Then finally wrote, Ken *, understanding and surviving are 2 different things. He put the phone down and closed his eyes. For a moment, he could still smell her perfume, still remember the warmth of her hand in his, still hear the way she used to laugh when he tried to make her forget the world. But memories don't fade because of truth, they fade because people force themselves to move on. The next day, reporters surrounded him as he left his building. Ken, what did you mean by it wasn't about love? One shouted. Was Sarah just a friend? Another demanded. He paused for a second, looked straight into the cameras, and said calmly, not everything that changes your life needs to be called love. The crowd went silent. The quote hit harder than the first one. He turned, got into his car, and drove away. That night, Sarah packed her things. Rome had become unbearable, too many reminders, too many shadows. Before she left, she wrote one final note and placed it in a drawer where she knew he'd find it eventually. Love or not, you changed me. And maybe that's all it was ever meant to be. 2 days after the interview, Rome felt quieter, heavier. But the silence was an illusion, beneath it, chaos was spreading. Every entertainment outlet was running one headline, where is Sarah Bluma? The woman who had once been seen beside CanYaman, who had quietly shaped so many of his recent projects, had suddenly disappeared. Her phone was off, her apartment dark, her social accounts deleted. Paparazzi camped outside her last known address, reporters harassed neighbors, and fans flooded online forums with theories. Some said she had left the country. Others believed she was hiding with Can. And some whispered that the pressure had finally broken her. Meanwhile, Ken remained trapped in his own spotlight. The media wouldn't let go, every public appearance turned into an interrogation. Did you drive her away? Was it really not love? Do you regret it? He stayed composed, answering with calmness that only deepened the mystery. But inside, he was unraveling. In private, he searched. Quietly, secretly. He called people they both knew, reached out to her former colleagues. No one had answers, only questions. One night, exhausted and frustrated, he went back to the small coastal villa they had once visited during filming breaks. It was the only place that had ever felt theirs. A place hidden from the world. The air smelled the same, salt, pine, and distant rain. He stood at the edge of the terrace, staring at the sea that stretched endlessly before him, and whispered, "Where did you go, Sarah?" His manager found him there the next morning, sitting in silence. "You can't stay like this," he said gently. "The press is waiting for a statement. They're saying you abandoned her." Ken turned slowly, his voice low but firm. "I never abandoned her. I protected her." "What do you mean?" He looked away. "If I said what we really were, they'd destroy her. So I gave them something they could digest, that it wasn't love." The manager sighed. "But they're not satisfied. They're turning you into the villain." "Let them," Ken said. "Better me than her." Later that week, an Italian magazine published an article claiming to have found exclusive sources. They wrote that Sarah had left Italy, that she had been seen in Madrid under another name. There were no photos, no proof, just words. But it was enough to make the story grow again. Ken refused to comment. Yet when he returned home that night, he opened his laptop, searched her name, and stared at the few remaining images of them together. They looked happy, genuinely happy. The kind of happiness you can't fake for cameras. He opened a blank document and began to type, "Not for the press, not for the public, for her. I told them it wasn't about love because they wouldn't understand the kind we had. It was something pure, something too fragile to survive under their lights. Maybe it wasn't love by their definition, but it was what kept me breathing when everything else felt fake. If you're out there, know this, I never stopped waiting." He saved the file but didn't send it. Some truths were meant to be carried in silence. A week later, Ken appeared on a live TV show to promote a new project. Everyone knew they'd bring up Sarah, and everyone waited for his reaction. The host hesitated before asking, "Ken, do you still think it wasn't love?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes love doesn't look like what we expect. Sometimes it's sacrifice." The studio went completely silent. That sentence became his new quote, printed on magazine covers, echoed online, whispered by fans. But in that quiet moment, only he knew what it really meant. Love had never left him, he had buried it alive. Far away, in a quiet apartment in Madrid, Sarah watched that interview. Her hands trembled as he said the word sacrifice. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled softly. "You still protect me," she whispered. And then she turned off the TV, picked up her pen, and began to write. "I understand now. You gave up your truth to save mine. But one day, they'll know. One day, I'll tell them." Months had passed since Sarah's disappearance. The media had grown quiet, the public had moved on to new scandals, and Ken seemed to have buried the story, at least on the surface. He returned to work, smiled during press events, even laughed in interviews. But those who knew him well could see the difference. His eyes had changed. There was a sadness behind them, the kind that comes from losing something you can never get back. Then, one morning, everything changed again. A photo began circulating online, blurry, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Sarah Bluma, walking through Fiumicino Airport in Rome. Alone. Sunglasses on, head low, a single suitcase by her side. Within hours, hashtags like #SarahBloomReturns and #CanYaman Reunion were trending worldwide. Journalists swarmed the airport, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. When Can's team showed him the photo, he froze. For a few seconds, he didn't breathe. "She's back," he whispered, his voice barely audible. His manager nodded. "It seems so. But no one knows why." He stared at the screen, the image burned into his mind. He didn't know whether to feel hope or fear. If she was back, it could only mean one of two things, closure, or chaos. That night, he went to the one place where he thought she might go, the old cafe in Trastevere where they had shared countless late-night talks. It was nearly empty, dimly lit, smelling of coffee and rain. And there she was, sitting by the window, as if she had never left. She looked up as he approached. Neither spoke for several seconds. Finally, she broke the silence. "You didn't expect to see me again, did you?" He sat down slowly, still trying to believe she was real. "I stopped expecting anything a long time ago," he said quietly. Sarah smiled sadly. "I saw your interview. The one where you said it wasn't love." Ken lowered his gaze. "I had to say it. You know that." "I do," she replied softly. But hearing it still hurt. "I know," he said. "It hurt me too." The silence that followed was full of everything they had never said. The cafe around them seemed to fade until it was just the two of them again, two people who had loved in a way the world couldn't define. She finally spoke again. "I came back because I couldn't keep running. You were right, hiding didn't protect me. It only made me lose myself." Ken looked at her with quiet intensity. "You didn't lose yourself, Sarah. You survived. And that's what I wanted." She reached across the table, her hand brushing his. "And what about you, Ken? Did you survive?" He smiled faintly. "Barely." For the first time in months, they laughed, not with joy, but with relief. The kind of laughter that comes after too much pain. But the peace didn't last. The moment they walked out of that cafe, flashes blinded them. Paparazzi had followed them. Cameras, shouts, chaos. Within minutes, the photos went viral. CanYaman and Sarah Bluma reunite in Rome. The internet went mad again. Talk shows called it the comeback of the year. Some accused them of using it for publicity, others celebrated it as the love story that refused to die. But inside, both knew the truth: it wasn't a comeback. It was goodbye. A few days later, Ken announced an unexpected press conference. His manager begged him not to. "You don't owe anyone anything," he said. "Don't feed the fire again." But Ken shook his head. "I owe her the truth. The real one this time." When he stood before the cameras that evening, the world went silent. Every news outlet streamed it live. Fans held their breath. He began calmly, his voice steady, his eyes clear. "There's been a lot of talk about my connection with Sarah Bluma. Some called it love, others called it scandal. But what it really was honesty. She saw me when no one else did. She gave me something real in a world full of pretending. And I will never be ashamed of that." The reporters tried to interrupt, but he continued. "Yes, I said it wasn't love. Because what we had went beyond it. It was friendship, trust, truth, everything love should be, but rarely is. If that's something you can't understand, that's fine. Because it wasn't meant for you. It was ours." That statement went viral instantly. Hashtags flooded every platform, #BeyondLove, #Ken and Sarah, #It was ours. And in the crowd, unnoticed by anyone, Sarah stood silently near the exit. Her eyes filled with tears, not of regret, but of peace. She knew it was over. And yet, for the first time, it didn't hurt. When the cameras stopped rolling that night, the room fell into an eerie silence. Ken remained standing at the podium for a few seconds longer, his hands resting on the microphone, his eyes lost in the distance. He had said what needed to be said, maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to close the chapter. Enough to protect what was left of something beautiful that had already been torn apart by the world. As the journalists shouted their final questions, Ken turned away and walked out through the side door. Outside, the air was cold, the sky a deep shade of midnight blue. He took a deep breath and felt something strange, not relief, not sadness. Just peace. For the first time in months, he wasn't pretending. He had finally spoken his truth. But somewhere across the city, another story was quietly ending. Sarah sat in her hotel room, the lights off, her suitcase open on the bed. She had watched the entire press conference live, her hand over her heart the whole time. Every word he said had cut deep, but it also healed something inside her. She had spent months blaming herself, hiding from the world, convinced that she had ruined both their lives. But now, hearing him say that what they had was real, even if it wasn't love, gave her the closure she never thought she'd find. She walked to the window and stared out at the lights of Rome, the same city that had witnessed both their beginning and their downfall. A small smile curved her lips as she whispered, "Thank you, Can. You finally set us free." Then she turned back to the table, where an envelope lay beside her passport. Inside it was a short letter, her final message to him. "Can, you were right. Some stories aren't meant to be understood, only felt. What we had was one of them. It changed me, and it changed you, and that's enough. Don't look for me this time. Wherever I go, I'll carry the peace you gave me tonight." Sarah. She sealed the envelope and left it at the hotel reception with his name on it. The next morning, she was gone. No one saw her leave, no one knew where she went. It was as if she had disappeared into the wind, just like before, only this time, it was by choice. When Can received the letter 2 days later, he didn't open it right away. He sat with it for hours, holding it in his hands, afraid that reading it would make the finality real. But when he finally did, something in him broke, and healed, all at once. He read her words over and over again, then placed the letter inside a small wooden box along with a photo of them smiling, one of the few moments that had never been published or leaked. He locked it away, not out of pain, but as a way to protect what they once were from a world that had tried to destroy it. Months passed. Can returned to Istanbul, throwing himself into his work. His performances grew more emotional, his interviews more thoughtful. Fans noticed how every time he spoke about love, he used the word truth instead. He never mentioned Sarah again, but those who really listened could feel her presence in every word he said. One evening, during a live talk show, a fan asked him, "Do you still believe it wasn't love?" Kim paused for a long time, then smiled faintly. "Maybe I was wrong," he said softly. "Maybe it was love, just not the kind that survives." The audience fell silent. Cameras captured the moment, his eyes distant, yet calm, as if he was looking at someone only he could see. Somewhere, miles away, Sarah watched that same moment on her phone. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That's enough," she whispered. "That's our ending." And that night, as the city lights flickered outside both their windows, they looked at the same sky, two people connected by something that could never be defined, only remembered. Because in the end, it truly wasn't about love. It was about truth, connection, and the kind of bond that,